Buenas, buenas. Welcome to IMSTA Online. I'm Kevin Ochoa, and today we're going to be taking a look at FabFilter Saturn 2, and we're going to be looking at how to create distortion-based sequences within Saturn 2. Now, before we get to that, we're going to cover the basics, because Saturn 2 can be quite a daunting effects processor, because it has many different sections. It has the amplifier section, the tone section, dynamics, feedback, frequency. There's a lot of things to cover inside Saturn 2. That's before getting to the multiband stuff as well, because you can do all this on a per band basis. Now, we're going to look at some guitars and some drums first. So we're going to process the drum with some of the amplifier cabinet models that there is inside Saturn. And then we're going to be looking at multiband processing for drums. And finally, we're going to be looking at distortion-based sequencing with some drums and some synths. So basically, let me show you the before and afters, so you guys can get a little bit of an idea what this is going to sound like. So we have the bass demo that I have here. I muted all the processing. It's pretty quiet. Let's enable the effects. As before. So it's a quite drastic change. Now I have to make sure I turn off the whole effects processing chain, because if I turn on, as you heard earlier, you start to get some feedback. You heard that? That's feedback. You want to be careful with that. So make sure you turn off the processing or bypass the effect itself. Now, let's close that down a little bit. Let's just run one sauce in through it. You heard that? That's the original sound. With the Saturn on, quite a bit different. Again, just a sound wave being filtered out. You add the effects to it. Like I said, make sure you turn this off before you stop playing, or else you're going to get some feedback on some of these distortion sequences. That's what I like to call them, because we're using distortion to create a sequence, and then we're going to be using LFOs to hit different notes. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But yeah, I want to make sure to make it very clear that you need to turn off Saturn 2, or bypass it, or make the mix down go all the way down, or else you're going to get some feedback when you're working like this. So, before we jump into that guy, let's go look at the smaller ones right here. We have the pattern here with drums. Pretty standard. Now here, it's just a warm tape preset. And just so we get some overdriven drums through tape, it sounds very cool. Let's run it again. Notice how we get all this crunchiness, all these upper harmonics are created. We also have a dynamics section right here. So we're going to get a little bit into that a little bit later. Let's go to the RNX. Again, I'm just showing you guys right now what we're working with, so you guys can get an idea of what we're doing. So let's go to Saturn 2. And here I'm using the American Plexi amp. I'm going to bypass the chain to show you guys the before. A very soft, quiet guitar. And guitar amps within Saturn 2 give these guitars such a nice tone and timbre. It's really, really cool. And you have plenty of these. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different amps. And you also have the tapes, the tubes that you can also run those guitars through after you, or before you run them through those amp simulations. So this is really cool to work with. And that's where we're going to start. because the most important part about the distortion is figuring out what distortion you're going to use. So, like I said, there's a tube, tape, and amp section. And right here we have some saturation. And we also have some really special transformers and an effect section, which I'm going to get to in a bit. These are really, really cool. Again, let's run the guitar amps through some of these. I'm going to start off with the Tweed amp, from the American Tweed amp. And the cool thing is you can use your mouse scroll wheel to go between or scroll through different amps or distortion emulations. Let's start from the very top. Let's go all the way to the tubes. And of course, let's put the mix to 100. And notice how the drive section is very, very smooth. You don't ever hear like a huge jump. It's all very, very smooth and incremental. Even when you get to some of the harsher models. Let's go to the clean. Warm. Let's make a loop right here just so you can jump between some of this. I just want to give you guys an idea of what this sounds like because it's terrific. The tapes again. The amps now. I really like the American Plexi amp. It's probably my favorite one. Like I said earlier, we have the dynamic section right here. And then we can tweak the tone of said amp or distortion type right here. So for example, if we're using the tape one from earlier, maybe there's a little bit too many high harmonics, so you can scoop them out. Likewise, if we have too little high dynamics on, high frequencies, I should say, sorry, on this amp, we can introduce some of the presence into that. So you have it. That's how the tone section works. You can later add some modulation sources to these individual parameters, which I'll show you guys when we start sequencing some stuff. Here, let's keep continuing on looking at some of the amps here. So they're all just so unique. It's incredible that you have so many different types of amps and distortion models here. Here we have some saturation. And these saturation ones will work really well with drums because sometimes you want to have the tape, but sometimes when you're working with like 808s and like heavy kick drums, you want to make sure that they sound still smooth at the bottom, that they're not breaking down. And these subtle saturation ones work very, very good. Let's go to the next one. And finally, we have these transformers that sound amazing as well. Let's try the subtle one first. Very, very subtle. Let's go over to the gentle. Again, very, very smooth, even though we're driving it pretty hard right now. And let's hit the last one, the warm one. and that's the one that does the most damage to our signal in a good, clean way. Actually, even though transformers are a little bit more aggressive, but the way the drive works on Saturn is just so amazing. It's so smooth. Let's go over to the effects, smudge. Check this out. It's almost like we're doing some granular synthesis type of thing. It's so cool. It reminds me a lot of the stuff from like early hardstyle and like that Streaming does, where he makes he grabs vocals and he makes them pan out, and then he runs them through. I don't know if it's a granulizer or like a chopper, but it just opens them up and chops them, and then he spreads them out. So what you could do is, for example, since we have the smudge here and a smudge there on the band that we just created, by the way, to add bands, we just go up here and press the plus button. And what you could do is pan one of the bands to the left and the other one to the right. And we can get these really cool stereo and psychedelic effects. Let's close this down. Actually, let's go back to the default and let's go back to the effects. We're going to select breakdown. Check this out. It's like your sounds are pitching down and pitching back up, almost like a turntable. Let's try this on the drums so you guys can hear this much more obviously, because I think it's a better example with the drums. Let's go to effects, breakdown, check this out. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe they're trying to model the pitching down of a vinyl record or something like that, but including some of the distortion that you get from running the vinyl through some old gear, and it sounds fantastic. It just sounds very, very creative. What you can do with this now, and what I'll start doing later on when we start looking at the sequencing with Saturn, is that you can actually make things pitch differently. So you can change the pitch of things. So if I run back to the guitar for a second, or for the rest of that portion of the demo, let me show what I mean. Let's zero in on this section that has a sustained guitar, and what we'll do is go back to that Saturn. You can see the bending right here inside Wave Candy. I'm gonna add a LFO, and I'm gonna tell this LFO to be quite aggressive, to not be very smooth. And then I'm going to route it to modulate the drive. And now what we're going to do is basically change the pitch of this. And if we set it to the right amount, we can send it exactly 1 octave higher or 1 octave lower. So let's see, let's type in 0.25. By the way, if you ever want to undo something that you did and you didn't like, you can come up here to the history, and you can go back many times in edit history, and you can go forward as well. Let's try 50 right here. So you get some pretty crazy stuff. This one's a little bit harder to tune for me, because I'm running this through more effects later down the line. Especially the reverb sounds a little weird. But when you start to sequence things, like I will in a second, they start to make a lot more sense. Finally, if we go back to the effects, let's go to clean again. If we go to the effects, we have a fold back. So this is like fold back, distortion, and then you have rectifier. Oh. And destroy. So you get basically every single type of distortion included inside Saturn 2. I think asymmetrical distortion is the only thing that's missing, or maybe it is included in one of these, or there might be a way to create asymmetrical distortion. But yeah, there's basically every type of distortion there is, and that you would like to use on drums, guitars, synths. Basically, it's all here, and you're able to do multiband edits on this because it's so crazy. It's so FabFilter. Let's go and add 5 of these. Look at that. Actually, can you do 6? Yeah, you can do 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 different bands. Crazy. So basically, with each one of these, you can load up individual types of distortion. Let's do that really quickly. Let's be very crazy. Let's add different types of amps. See what we get, just randomly. And then we'll start to look at some of the sequencing stuff. Not bad for just being a bunch of random stuff. I think that was actually pretty cool. Let's save that as a preset. So let's call it 6-band random guitar or random amp. That's actually quite cool. Yeah, and then, like I said, you can change the dynamics in each one of these. So for example, if an amp is a little bit too aggressive compared to the other ones, you can make them be a little bit more dynamic. Likewise, you can also change a band level here. And find the sweet spot for that specific model that you're using compared to the other models. The other thing that I forgot to mention was if you use a drive, probably wouldn't notice this already. As it's slower, the panel is less bright, and as you give it more drive, it gets a lot brighter. So let's run audio through it. Very visual, very nice to look at, and also very, of course, nice to hear. Usual FabFilter. Now, if we close this down, let's hop on over to the to this section over here, the crazy stuff. Let's turn on the processing on it. You can see that there's these bands that are just moving all crazy. You see that? Let's make this full screen. You see these that are moving? All these little lights that are moving are modulations that are created by the LFOs, the amp envelope that I created, or the XY pad that we have over here. So it's absolute madness in here. Let me show you how I get here. Let me close this down. Let's start off with a new preset. So let's init this guy. Clean. Now, what I did essentially was I wanted to create a distorted sound, but that had a little bit different rhythm, that added some high end, some bottom end, and created some crunchiness in the mid range, and also changed the notes of what I was inputting into Saturn. So the first time that I ever used Saturn, I actually came up with this preset over here. Let me show you. That sounds very strange. Let's clone this and let's add just a regular saw. let's add some notes to it. I just want to show you that first preset that I ever made because it's really, really cool. Let's add a new preset. Right click. Look at all those cool sounds that are just created, just making just trying to place a note. Okay, let's go to 4 bars. Let's try to extend this. All right, play back. Actually, I think I need to do this. Put 1 hit each bar. There you go. You can hear there that the bass is going up. You also have kind of like a little percussion thing going on. And this is all created via the modulation sources. Because, like I said, the sound originally sounds like this. Nothing like the one we're processing. Let's close that down. And let's hop over back to the example. Let's make it init. So let's go back to the effects that I showed you earlier. The breakdown. See how you can change the pitch? Let's add again the LFO. And this time let's see, let's make it almost to 0, just a little bit off so we don't get any clicking. And I'm gonna change it from free to half note or half whole note. Let's go to the drive so you can change the pitch. And now we obviously need to tune this correctly, so let's move this to 25%. And let's change the modulation to 0.25. And let's make sure that we have our loop appropriately set. And let's remove or out of the extra notes that we needed. Strange, I'm not getting the same rhythm right now. Hold on. I must have input something wrong. Let's try the whole. Oh. Let's make this perfect then. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna add another XLFO. This one we're gonna set to be quarter notes. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to use a glide. Let's do the opposite of this. Or, check this out. If I use the glide like that, and then we can send it to modulate something else up in the high area. Let's create a couple new bands. We can tell it to modulate this treble. Look at that. And then we can tell it, hey, we want you to modulate this opposite. Oh, I think this is what sounds weird right there. Let's delete it. And let's also make this. Let's delete that guy. It's very important to input the right notes before you actually start doing the distortion, the sequencing. Now here I'm going to add an amp. do American Tweed. Lower it. I can add some or remove some of the dynamics. It's going to come back into play in a second. So you see how the sound starts to take shape a little bit? At first it sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but slowly but surely starts to make more sense. Okay, now I'm going to push this a little bit higher. And I'm going to add another band right here. And this is the one I'm going to be using to create a little bit of a kind of like a riff. Let's go to the XLFO again. Oh, sorry, XLFO. There you go. And we're going to add a few more steps here. Let's add 4 more. And we're going to use these to basically try to create a resonant melody. What I mean by like a resonant melody is basically we're going to create a resonance that's so loud, it's going to sound like a note. And then we're going to pitch that using this LFO. So again, let's set it to, let's do a quarter. And let's send it over to this amp right here. I'm going to send it to the tone right about right here. See that? Solo it. I'm going to repeat this a couple times, also in the bass notes right here in the treble. Let's add that here. Let's add one right here. Let's do this one in the middle one. Sorry about that. Let's add a few more. Yeah, we gotta be careful with that feedback. It can be pretty aggressive. All right. Sorry about that, but that's, like I said, when you press pause, we get some feedback, so you got to be very careful with that. Now let's pause it. We can make this band be a little bit lower, so the resonance is a bit lower. So let's bring it down. And that's the sound we had originally, and now we're at this. So, quite a bit different to what we input into the Saturn II. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you learned something new about FabFilter Saturn II, give the video a like. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel because you don't want to miss out on any of the upcoming IMSTA sessions that we're going to have, because they're going to be featuring other content creators like myself and also other music producers and audio engineers who have won Grammys and other awards. So make sure you guys don't miss out on any of the upcoming classes we have with them. So make sure to subscribe and also ring the notification bell. Once again, I'm Kevin Ochoa with IMSTA Online, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.